Fishing nets in the North Sea keep dragging up human bones from a country that doesn't exist on any map. In 2024, a laser fired from an aircraft cut through the Amazon canopy and lit up an entire city that no one had seen in 2,000 years. The driest stretch of the Sahara turned out to be hiding a mother still holding her children's hands. 12 civilizations history forgot, whose descendants never left. Number 12. Doggerland. A North Sea trawler hauls up its catch. Mixed in with the cod, a barbed harpoon point, carved from antler, polished smooth by someone's hands. The crew throws it back. Next haul, a human jawbone. They throw that back too. This kept happening for decades before anyone paid attention. 8,000 years ago, Britain was not an island. A vast stretch of land called Doggerland connected it to mainland Europe. Rivers, forests, marshes, lakes, and the communities that lived along them. As the ice caps melted, the water rose slowly at first. Then, around 8,150 years ago, the Norwegian continental shelf collapsed. The Storegga slides sent a wall of water across everything that remained. For years, scientists assumed that wave erased Doggerland entirely. A 2020 seabed core study proved them wrong. A chain of islands survived the tsunami and may have stayed inhabited for thousands of years after. Every wave that crosses the North Sea today still passes over villages no human eye has seen in 8,000 years. Number 11. The Green Sahara. Paul Sereno came to Niger looking for dinosaur bones. He found human ones instead. Gobero sits inside the Tenere, a place Tuareg nomads call a desert within a desert. Nothing survives there now. But when Sereno's team began brushing sand off the first skull, they realized they were standing in a graveyard. The oldest and largest Stone Age cemetery ever found in the Sahara. 200 burials. 5,000 years of dead. Because between 10 and 5,000 years ago, this desert was green. Lakes filled with 6-foot perch. Crocodiles, hippos, 2 cultures lived here across that span, separated by 1,000 years of drought, when the lake dried up completely and everyone left. Among nearly 200 skeletons, 1 burial stopped the entire team. A woman lying on her side, arms stretched out, each hand clasping the hand of a child. They had been placed together on a bed of flowers, 5,700 years ago. The Saharan wind eventually stripped the sand away. When the excavators reached them, 1 tiny hand was still reaching upward, every finger bone in place. Number 10. The Indus Valley Civilization. Here is a list of things archaeologists have never found in the Indus Valley. A palace, a throne, a statue of a king, a weapons cache, a defensive wall, a burial that suggests one person ranked above another. Now here is what they did find. A civilization of 5 million people, larger than Egypt and Mesopotamia combined, with grid-planned cities, standardized bricks manufactured to identical dimensions across sites hundreds of kilometers apart, and underground drainage that engineers initially refused to date because it looked too modern. Someone organized all of this. 5 million people do not coordinate brick sizes across a subcontinent by accident, but whoever held authority left no monument to themselves. No palace, no crown, no tomb larger than anyone else's. More than 400 symbols sit undeciphered on seals and tablets. The one civilization that might have shown us a completely different model of human power wrote its explanation in a language that died with it. Number 9. The Cucuteni Tripilia culture. What kind of people build a city of 15,000 and then set it on fire on purpose? The Cucuteni Tripilia did, across what is now Romania, Moldova, and western Ukraine, from roughly 5,500 to 2750 BCE, pottery painted with spirals, so precise, it ranks among the finest prehistoric ceramic art ever found. Settlements planned in concentric rings. Then, every 60 to 80 years, roughly 1 human lifetime, they burned everything. Controlled, uniform, intentional, then built again on the ash. A grandmother could have watched the city of her childhood burn, helped build the one that replaced it, and lived long enough to watch that one burn too. 3,000 years of this. The descendants of those people live across Eastern Europe today. No one has found the belief that made them do it, only the ash it left behind. Layer after layer after layer. Number 8. The Amazon Lost Cities. For 20 years, Stefan Rostein knew something was buried in Ecuador's Upano Valley. He had found earthen mounds, fragments of roads, but the jungle was too thick to see how any of it connected. In 2024, A plane carrying LiDAR sensors flew over and fired laser pulses through the canopy. What came back was not a village, not a cluster of ruins, a network of cities. More than 6,000 rectangular platforms, roads, agricultural terraces, drainage canals, spread across 300 square kilometers, built while Rome was still a republic. One site's core matched the footprint of the Giza Plateau. The Upano people lived here for 1,000 years, then vanished. The forest closed over them so completely that for centuries, scholars declared the Amazon incapable of supporting civilization. The civilization had been listening the entire time, buried under the roots of the argument against its existence. Number 7. The Norte Chico civilization. No grain, no pottery in its earliest phase, no metal tools, no wheel. Caral, sitting in Peru's Supe Valley, is nearly 5,000 years old, contemporary with the Egypt of the pyramids, and nothing about it follows the rules. Ruth Shady Solis uncovered 66 hectares of platform mounds beginning in 1994, the tallest rising 18 meters. The economy that built them ran on anchovies. Coastal communities fished, inland communities grew cotton for nets, and the exchange between them generated enough collective will to raise monuments that rival anything in the ancient world. Across every Norte Chico site excavated to date, not a single weapon has been recovered. No fortification, no skeleton bearing marks of violence. Archaeology cannot yet prove that no one was coerced, but it has looked extensively and found nothing to suggest they were. 5,000 years ago, on a strip of Peruvian desert, people built pyramids on fish and cooperation. The pharaohs needed slaves, and it only gets stranger from here. Number 6. The Yonaguni Monument, 25 meters down, off the westernmost tip of Japan, a stone formation that has divided geologists for 40 years. Flat terraces, right-angle edges, what looks like carved steps dropping to the seabed. Kihachiro Aratake found it in 1986 while diving alone. One geologist, Masaaki Kimura, has spent decades arguing it was shaped by human hands, and if he's right, whoever built it did so more than 10,000 years ago, when that seabed was dry land. Another geologist, Robert Schock, has spent nearly as long arguing that sandstone fractures naturally along right angles and needs no sculptor. The Japanese government has refused to call it either way. Both men have stood on the same underwater ledge, looked at the same stone, and seen completely different things. Somewhere between their two answers is a civilization that either existed before anything we've ever recorded, or never existed at all. Number 5. The Natufians. 14,000 years ago, someone buried an old woman with her hand resting on a puppy. The puppy was curled against her, positioned as if sleeping. They were found together at Ain Malaha, in northern Israel, and whoever placed them there did it with the kind of care that only grief explains. The Natufians were hunter-gatherers who did something no textbook said was possible at that time. They stayed in one place. Permanent stone houses, wild cereals harvested with sickles worn glossy from use, grain stored but never planted. They chose home before they had the technology that supposedly makes home possible. A 2016 DNA study confirmed they were the direct ancestors of the Neolithic farmers who carried agriculture into Europe and South Asia. Every crop ever planted, every field ever plowed, every civilization that fed itself from the ground traces back to people who chose to stop walking and bury their dead beside the animals they loved. They didn't vanish. They built the world. Then they lived in it. Number 4. Göbekli Tepe. No houses, no granaries, no trash heaps, no cooking hearths, no storage pits, nothing that says anyone lived here, just pillars, T-shaped limestone columns 6 meters tall, up to 20 tons, carved with foxes, vultures, scorpions, and lions. Built 11,600 years ago by people who grew nothing and herded nothing, 1,000 years before the first known crop, and 6,000 years before Stonehenge. Klaus Schmidt arrived at this hillside in southeastern Turkey in 1994 and recognized within hours that the standard model of civilization had a problem. Agriculture was supposed to come first, then surplus, then cities, then temples. Göbekli Tepe is a temple with no city, no surplus, and no agriculture, built by hunter-gatherers who apparently needed to worship before they needed to eat. Around 8,000 BCE, someone buried the entire complex under tons of soil and rock, not abandoned, not destroyed, packed away, carefully, as if it was meant to be preserved but never seen again. 12,000 years later, a shepherd noticed carved stones on a hillside, and the thing they buried came back. Number 3. The Denisovans. The bone was so small it could sit on a fingertip, a child's pinky finger, found in a Siberian cave, somewhere between 30 and 50,000 years old. In 2010, the Max Planck Institute pulled DNA from it and found something no one had predicted. The child was not Homo sapiens, not Neanderthal, but a member of a lineage that had split off between 400,000 and 1,000,000 years ago, a species that apparently walked from Siberia to Southeast Asia across hundreds of thousands of years. The total confirmed physical evidence for their existence on this planet: one fingertip, a handful of teeth, and half a jawbone from Tibet. That is all. But 3 to 5% of the DNA in every Melanesian and Aboriginal Australian alive today comes from Denisovans. Tibetans carry a Denisovan gene called EPAS1, the reason they can breathe where the air is too thin for the rest of us. Svante Pääbo won the Nobel Prize in 2022, partly for this. We found an entire species of human being in a bone the size of a rice grain, and then we found them again, in the lungs of people living on the roof of the world. Number 2. The first Australians. 90 kilometers of open water. No land on the horizon. Between 50 and 65,000 years ago, people climbed into watercraft and crossed it, heading toward a continent none of them could see, and none of them had any reason to believe existed. The 2017 excavation at Madjedbebe confirmed arrival at least 65,000 years ago. Rock art at Murujuga dates beyond 40,000. Genetically, Aboriginal Australians descend from the first wave of humans to leave Africa, before European and East Asian lineages had even diverged, and carry the highest concentration of Denisovan DNA of any living population, picked up during the journey and carried to a continent where it has been preserved ever since. In 2016, researchers documented Aboriginal oral traditions that describe, with geographic precision, coastlines and islands that haven't existed for 7 to 18,000 years, memories of a world before the sea rose, held in story across hundreds of generations without a single written word. This is not a lost civilization. It is the longest continuous civilization on Earth, and the knowledge it carries has never been interrupted, not once, in 65,000 years. Number 1. The ghost population. In 2020, 2 geneticists ran a statistical model on the genomes of the Yoruba of Nigeria and the Mende of Sierra Leone. The model returned an anomaly, a genetic signature that didn't match Neanderthals, didn't match Denisovans, didn't match any population ever found in any cave or excavation on Earth. Something had interbred with the ancestors of modern West Africans, roughly 43,000 years ago, something that diverged from the human line between 360,000 and 1,000,000 years ago. Between 2 and 19% of some West African ancestry may come from this group. Then it vanished. Not a single confirmed bone, no teeth, no tools, no cave, no trace in any fossil record anywhere. It exists only as a number inside living people, detectable by mathematics, invisible to everything else. Every other entry on this list left something behind: a temple, a city, a fingertip. The ghost population left nothing except itself, dissolved into the DNA of people who have never heard of it, carried forward through 43,000 years of lives that never knew what they were continuing. They are the most successful ghosts in human history, so thoroughly gone that the only place they still exist is us.